Hello, good afternoon, and I hope you're all having a good week. Kind of sounds shallow sometimes because every time I listen to a podcast or a YouTube show, people open with, "Hello, how are you doing? All you lovely people," blah, 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 as if somebody's going to say, "Oh, yeah, I'm doing great. How are you?" Actually, some of our listeners do that, and we're delighted when they do. So this week is an Ask Me Anything show. We haven't done one for a while, and I did ask Erin to join me for this. We have a few questions, and if you have questions as you're viewing this, please pop them in the comments section. But first, I want to talk a little bit about what's coming up. We don't have a date for this yet, but we are working on two really important things, actually. One is that we're going to have a couple of episodes in the near future that are going to focus on fertility and healthy pregnancy. We're going to talk with a couple of old friends and hopefully the author of a book that we feel is very important. And we'll get Lily Nichols on again. She's written a book about real food for fertility and another one, real food for pregnancy. I'm not sure if I got that title exactly right, but we interviewed her last year. Real Food for Gestational Diabetes was her book, and that we talked about, and the topic was, of course, managing gestational diabetes with food. Anyway, so we are looking forward to her and a couple of other really excellent authors, but we'll let you know as soon as we have all of that scheduled. We're just pretty excited about that. So we'll let you know, and we'll probably be jumping up and down for joy. Next week, I will be traveling in South Carolina with many of our family members. We have a very dear one getting married on Saturday, so we're headed down to North Carolina for Lynette's wedding. Lynette, if you watch this. Most of our family will be there, and then we will be heading down, just George and I, to South Carolina, to the Charleston area, to spend a few days with our son Taylor and his wife Sarah and their two gorgeous, sweet little boys. And we thought it would be a good idea to interview Sarah. I'm excited about that, not just because I love her, but also because she came from a standard American diet background, has some of the complications and the problems that are commonly associated with growing up on the standard American diet. Nobody knew better, and that was okay. I grew up on the standard American diet as well, and also have some consequences from that, which I've mostly been able to overcome. But anyway, Sarah has adopted our way of eating, our lifestyle for she and her family, and we're really excited to talk about how she makes all of that work. And I'm going to let my messy hair down. Okay, so that will be next week, and we have some other neat things coming up. So for today, however, I'm sitting at one of my favorite stores besides Home Goods, IKEA. I brought my daughter Claire out and her little baby who's sleeping blissfully. I think I can show you. There she is, beautiful Lily. She's 8 weeks old tomorrow. So I decided it would be a great idea to bring Claire out and have some mom-daughter time away from the other children. So, of course, where do we come? We come shopping at IKEA. So hopefully you can hear me just fine. Erin, can you hear me fine? Okay. Yeah. So with the headset, not too much background noise. So today's show may be a little bit shorter unless a lot of you hop on. We have some questions to go over, some from our friend Tina, who is a regular viewer. And so we're going to start with some of her questions. Erin, if you want to pull up the first.
Okay, let's see. So this one actually comes up pretty often, asking about parasite cleanses. So this is like a really popular topic on social media these days. Just super popular topic.
Yeah.
So just kind of generally talking about parasites is one thing that we have a question on.
Yeah. Okay. That is a question that has been popular and circulating for the last couple of decades, actually, but it's really coming to more prominence currently, with many people jumping on the parasite cleanse bandwagon. Now, while I used to be there myself, I now, understanding more, proceed with more caution. And here's why. God puts everything in place for a purpose, and that includes parasites. So my current and evolving understanding of parasites is that they are there, as with something else that I know we have a question about, and we'll talk about in a few more minutes. But they're there to sequester toxins and help to keep them out of bodily circulation. So when we do a parasite cleanse, one of the common things that happens if we don't approach it properly is that those toxins, they are released as the parasites are broken down, as they die and they break down in our digestive tract as they're being excreted. They release those toxins, in which case that means that without proper precautions, you're likely to suffer some consequences, and they could be long-standing consequences, because the very things that the parasites were there protecting you from are now circulating within your body. So the first thing I think that is important to understand before we do a parasite cleanse is that if we have parasites, we need to understand why they're there. What is the root cause? What are they trying to take care of for us? And once we can understand something about that, then we need to remedy the situation prior to even trying to get rid of these critters, because otherwise we're just going to keep being reinfected. So whether you're an animal or a human, this is the issue. The parasites are there to keep us from being from becoming ill from toxins. It could be metals, it could be other things, but we need to address the reason that they're there to begin with. And then when we do an appropriate cleanse, we need to also be taking things like chlorella or cilantro, spirulina, maybe charcoal, activated charcoal, to absorb the things that the parasites have taken in from within our digestive tract. And so what the issue, the core issue is, needs to be addressed. We need to try to figure that out first, and then take appropriate measures before we do the cleanse. And there are different types of cleanses, just as there are also different types of bonding agents that we can ingest to address those things. Erin, I know this is something that you've studied in your training, and I want you to weigh in on this.
Yeah, so this is actually a little bit up my alley with my gut healing training that I've gone through. So
Yeah.
So yeah, like Mom said, like a lot of like it's normal for people to have parasites. So that's a normal thing. And a lot of times, like if you do a GI map or something like that, where you're testing for parasites, they honestly don't come up that often, but there's really only a couple kinds that you really have to worry about. If they do come up on any kind of testing. So the Blastocystis hominis is one, and Dientamoeba fragilis. So those are kind of just really the two out of many that might pop up that you really have to worry about. Otherwise, getting your gut in order it's better to get your microbiome functioning properly, so that those things don't come up anyway.
Yeah.
And if you think you might have parasites, it could be parasites, or it could be candida, or it could be opportunistic bacteria that's popping up. So it could be a lot of things. And all of those things are treated differently with different herbs. So it's it's better to err on the side of like knowing what you're actually dealing with and
Yeah.
testing instead of guessing what you have. So just because if you think you have a parasite, but it's something else, you could be going after a parasite, but it's not going to work because it's not the right protocol for you and what you're going through. So it's really kind of nuanced and really depends on a lot of things. But if your microbiome and your gut are happy and doing well, then you wouldn't really have to worry too much about parasites anyway.
Yeah. Is your sense that other than those two particular parasites, is it that we shouldn't be worrying as much about parasites as people do?
Yep, and getting your north to south digestion functioning properly. So if you have issues in your small intestines and colon, then you have issues further north. And so you can do a parasite cleanse, but if your stomach isn't, if you're not, don't have enough hydrochloric acid and gastric juices coming out to kill any pathogens that come in, and then the right kind of prebiotics and probiotics, if all of that stuff further north isn't functioning properly, you can do all the stuff for the downstream that you want, but you could come back with more problems if you're not really focusing on your full digestion from north to south, if that makes sense.
That makes sense to me. And I also just want to say that with all of this emphasis on parasite cleansing, and people are just kind of doing these cleanses willy-nilly, they're actually causing harm very often, is what I'm seeing and understanding. Would you concur?
I don't know if it's as much causing harm as that you're not really doing the proper things for true healing.
Right. Agreed, definitely. But also there's the risk, as I mentioned earlier, of releasing toxins that the parasites were there to take care of to begin with.
Yeah. Well, and if you're pregnant, you cannot go on a parasite cleanse either.
Right.
So
and explain that.
Really careful if you're pregnant or breastfeeding with those kinds of things.
Because even though we would think that those types of toxins or debris would not pass through the placenta or through our breast milk, they actually do. Just like caffeine and anything that we eat will go through the placenta and into the breast milk as well. And so we really need to be cautious and careful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All of that.
And a protocol for a pregnant or breastfeeding woman is going to be completely different than for someone who's not. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations for what kind of testing to seek, where to seek it, and what types of protocols generally people might pursue?
Well, I've been trained on the GI map, which is kind of the gold standard of microbiome stool testing. So that's what I've been trained on. There's other ones too, but the GI map is is a very good test that tests for a lot of things. And it shows up not just pathogens or parasites, but it also shows you the state of your digestive system as well. So it kind of gives you like a big picture, which is really great. And there's definitely other ones you can do specific. It's kind of, it's an expensive one to do. That's pretty much always out of pocket. So that's just kind of the barrier there. There's other tests you can do for specifically other stool tests you can do specifically looking for parasites or other, or, candida or things like that. So it just kind of depends on what your budget is and, how you want to move forward. But a protocol is really so individual to the person. It's just not something that can't just say this is going to work. It's very individual to each person depending on what's going on. But obviously, you have yeast issues, you're going to be using, herbs that are antifungals. If you have, dysbiotic overgrowth of bacteria, then you're going to be using antimicrobials, that kind of thing. So it really depends on what shows up and what the person can handle and all that. It's really, it's very individualized to the person.
As is everything with our health, there's no two people are exactly alike. We all are shaped by our environment, our experience, our traumas, our everything. Is there anything that someone who's really on a tight budget can do safely to figure out any of these issues?
There's questionnaires that you can fill out that are geared towards specific parts of your digestive system. Like I have a candida questionnaire that's really helpful. Some questionnaires about your stomach health, your liver, gallbladder health, your upper GI, that kind of thing. And then your lower GI, like bloating and that sort of thing. So I have like some questionnaires that you can fill out and kind of get a decent idea of what's going on. So sometimes that's helpful for like candida. That can be really helpful. That can actually be the candida questionnaires can be pretty telling about what's going on. So I have some of those that are helpful to just kind of check off some things, take a step back and kind of see where you might, is it like you're not likely to have it, possibly likely to have it, or you definitely have it. It kind of can put you into a category. So,
okay.
Those are some things you can do just if you're trying to DIY it, but you're always going to want to make sure that you're eating nutrient dense food,
Clean.
Good, clean food, that you're having bowel movements every day. You really want to make sure that you're eliminating toxins on a regular basis. You have to be doing that, whether that's
now that is a very important thing. I'm glad you mentioned it, because here's a question. It wasn't submitted, but it's a question that I get asked frequently, and that is about digestion. The standard recommendation when people have trouble going is more fiber. And when we were at Natural Hope Herbals last week, one of the speakers was talking about that. And he was saying, if you're not going every day, blah, 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 more fiber. And I'm saying, no. I know one person who has been backed up her entire life and goes once, maybe twice a week. But she told me once a week. And it's difficult. And she has been taking fiber per the recommendation of her doctors for decades.
Well, there's a bigger issue than fiber there.
Well, there is. And of course, not going creates more issues.
Yeah.
But fiber in and of itself.
Fiber can be really helpful if you're getting it through like vegetables. Really loading up on like broccoli and cauliflower and those kind of vegetables. But a big part of constipation is also hydration. A lot of people are not, and you might be drinking a lot of water, but you probably need minerals in your water in order to properly stay hydrated.
Yeah.
That's a big thing, especially if you're filtering your water. Like reverse osmosis filter takes everything out. So you got to put your minerals back in. So reverse osmosis water is great if you need to get bad stuff out of your water, which most people do, but you have to be putting minerals back in into your water. We have a Berkey filter here at home, which we love, but we add minerals back into the water to make sure that we're getting enough minerals. We just put most of the times just put the Redmond salt or the Celtic sea salt just in our water, especially first thing in the morning. We try to do a good bit of that. But hydration will make a really big difference for a lot of things. And it seems too simple, but it is very, very important and kind of a good starting point for people who are dealing with a lot of issues, including constipation.
And talking about water, structured water also is important. That's actually something that I'm wanting to talk about in a future episode, but structured water will get into our cells. I drink a lot of sparkling water. I feel much more hydrated with the sparkling water. But the other thing, and the main thing that I tell people beyond water with this problem is fermented foods and more fermented foods. Drink sauerkraut juice. It breaks everything down. Drink pickle juice, kimchi juice, whatever, but it breaks everything down and helps to move it through. So I think that is just as important as the water too. The reason why we eat fermented foods, besides that they usually taste good, is that they do help to digest the proteins and the fats and everything, the insoluble fiber, everything that is in our gut. It helps to break it down. So when we're talking constipation, it helps to break up the constipation as well. And so there is an example of using food as medicine instead of just taking a fiber supplement. And that's what most people are doing. One fiber supplement after another.
Well, and like psyllium husk is a great fiber supplement. So you really have to start slow and be drinking lots of water.
Yeah. And if things are not moving with that, then you back off on it. You don't keep adding more that compounds the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but then you also have further upstream issues where you probably don't have enough hydrochloric acid in your stomach to properly break down the food. You're probably not releasing pancreatic enzymes when the food's headed into the top part of your stomach. So those are some other things happening upstream that probably aren't happening correctly and is also compounding the issue.
So let's talk about pancreatic enzymes first. When Dad was healing from the Lyme disease, ulcerative colitis, and all of that, of course, he was taking pancreatic and digestive enzymes to break down, the biofilm of the Lyme disease spirochete and the associated organisms that were making him sick. But they also help to break down things in your gut, just as the enzymes do. Do you have a recommendation also on that? Would you recommend that people try pancreatic or digestive enzymes generally?
Yes and no. Pancreatic enzymes cannot be used long term. So you would, because it creates what's called a negative feedback loop where your body can stop producing its own. So it's the kind of thing that you're going to want to do it for a little bit and pulse it for a little bit while you're working on the rest of your body. So pancreatic enzymes, you just got to be a little bit careful with that. Digestive enzymes in general, there's several good ones. I mean, I'm really picky about where supplements come from and exactly what all is in them. So there's
I'm picky about everything, as you know, also.
But some great things you can start with: apple cider vinegar, And a small glass of water before, like 10 minutes before you eat, is a great way to get your body's own digestive juices to start working. Apple cider
Mhm.
vinegar is not a replacement for hydrochloric acid. It is just meant to help your stomach to wake up and start producing its own. So that, or digestive bitters. Really love,
Yes. Yes.
really love digestive bitters. And we typically get them from Natural Hope Herbals, or I get them locally. I actually have a local herb shop that makes them here.
That is a very interesting thing to bring up, though, because it used to be that people served bitter herbs at meals. For instance, the Passover meal, it has bitter herbs. That stimulates digestion, but it's not common today for people to take in bitter herbs with a meal.
Yeah, so bitter food when you're cooking is good. But the bitters, you need to typically comes in a liquid form, and that's because you want it to be on your tongue. You want your tongue to get that bitter sensation, because that's part of your nervous system telling your stomach to start making the gastric juices to prepare for food.
Yes.
So it's really important to have that, bitter taste on your tongue.
Yeah, and the whole body works together, starting from the tongue. If we're just talking about the digestive system, just the receptors that signal the brain to stimulate the production of digestive juices, and on. Even using, just as an example, unrelated, but using a sugar substitute still tells your brain that your body needs to start producing insulin because they're sweet.
So you might not be calling on your on glucose, but it's still calling on insulin.
Yes. So all these things that we do that we think we're doing for the good of our bodies can actually be causing more issues. But hydrochloric acid, let's talk about what we need to produce hydrochloric acid. Salt, of course, whole salt is one key component. Without that, we cannot produce the digestive enzymes and the hydrochloric acid in particular. But let's expand upon that.
Yeah, salt, zinc, B1 and B6 are all really important. Of course, one of the best places to get those is from beef, especially liver. But salt is really important.
Yeah.
Those are just some of the, zinc, salt, B6, B1.
Yeah.
Are
really, really important. And another part of the equation for many people is that they have had their gallbladder removed, in which case they're not going to digest food properly because the gallbladder is not holding and then releasing appropriate amounts of digestive enzymes. So if that's the case, then we do need to take a supplement.
You would need an ox bile supplement.
Yeah,
pretty
that's
much.
what
And this is another bio individual thing, but for the most part, anybody that does not have a gallbladder pretty much needs ox bile for the rest of their life. But another thing, they can pulse it. They can, I have a client who she only takes it when she has meals that are particularly fatty. She doesn't take it with every meal, but just if she knows her meal is gonna have a little bit more fat in it, she'll take it, but not necessarily all the time.
Fat and protein heavy meal as well. Yeah. So these little things, they're actually simple things, and yet they're made more complicated with modern wisdom, which isn't necessarily so wise. All right. Do we have, what question do we have next?
Let's see.
I know we have,
just to finish up on that parasite topic.
Yeah.
Pointed out that Natasha Campbell McBride explains that the living creatures neutralize the chemicals and absorb them into their own bodies. And when they're done their job, our body will escort those out. She calls Parasites the cleaning company. So she says, instead of attacking the fungi and other parasites, it's best to try and add more microbes to the system in order to assist and speed up the cleansing of your body, like eating fermented foods. So yes, that's absolutely great.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I'd forgotten. I had read that in an email also.
Yeah, in my training, we call it the flower field.
The flower field.
Because bacteria is neither good nor bad.
Right.
We tend to think of it as good or bad, but it's not necessarily good or bad. So
it's all there for a reason. It's the balance.
You want to, like, if you ran a GI map and saw your GI map, you'd see that there's like all kinds of bacteria that pops up on there, but you don't want what we call like beneficial or commensal bacteria. We want that to be on the higher side. In opportunistic dysbiotic bacteria that can tend to cause problems like streptococcus and staphylococcus, we want those to be like within range. So when those get overgrown, that's when you know that you have an imbalance there in your flowers. You need to put more flowers in and less weeds into your flower garden.
Yeah, and every weed has a purpose, just as every microbe has a purpose. So let's keep them in check. And fermented foods help to do that as well. They're a natural probiotic, but they're also a natural microbiome organizer. They keep things in check. It helps to keep things in check. Here's something that I don't want to go into heavily right now because we will come back to it in its own episode of this fall. But relating to the toxins that the parasites are sequestering, including heavy metals, cancers. Again, let's not go deeply into it because we're going to do a whole show. That's its own thing. But my current and evolving understanding of cancer is like that of the parasites. That tumors are not the enemy. Tumors are there trying to save us from toxins or overloads of various things that our body can't handle. And so when we have rampant cancer, it's a sign that we are taking in things that our body can't otherwise handle. So instead of hitting up the cancer with chemicals, we need to think differently and help the body instead to detoxify and get rid of the things that are causing the harm or potentially causing the harm. And let's look at cancer then as a healer, not the killer. It becomes a killer when we don't address the core issues and when we add toxins into our bodies to destroy the cancer. So that's about as far, unless you have something to add to that. I don't want to go deeply into that right now because that is a massive topic, super important, and it warrants its own time rather than right now.
Yeah.
So
that's another topic. Yana mentions heavy metals and mold. Mold is such a complex. It's so complex. That's definitely its own topic as well, with somebody who is very experienced in working with that. Mold can be really, really, really difficult.
Yes. Debilitating.
If you are living in mold, you need to figure out how to get rid of it because mold just exacerbates everything. And
it causes issues that are commonly attributed to other things.
Yeah. And
including
others. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that in and of itself, we'll look for a mold remediator to come on. I've had several friends who have dealt with very serious mold issues, including our friend Gabe. And I'll see him in a couple of weeks. Maybe I can have him hop on and we can talk about that because his daughter was seriously affected by mold in their house and the toxins that the mold produces, and she developed diverticulitis or ulcerative colitis. I don't remember. They're closely related, but anyway, there's just one of many instances that I know of where mold, it was killing her literally. This young child, it was killing her. and she's still in the process of trying to overcome it. So we'll try to go into that. Again, like cancer, that's kind of its own thing that we've got to dig deep into and set aside the time for that, especially.
And I just want to say real quick about the heavy metals. A lot of times, if your heavy metals are over the top, your macro and micro metals minerals are off. So one of the best places to start with the heavy metals is actually balancing your other minerals that are really important. So that's just like a quick little note. That could be a whole nother episode as well.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll go into some of these things more in depth at a later time, but we're kind of scratching the surface right now. An
HTMA test would give you a little bit of a bigger picture on your minerals and several heavy metals as well. So that's one test that's fairly affordable that you can do to kind of get a big picture look of where your minerals are at.
Okay. Yeah. Any resources for type 1 diabetes that we would recommend? And I'm going to say right now that we are talking with Dr. Diane Schwartzbein, who wrote the Schwartzbein Principle. Thank you. Yes. My favorite book. In that book, she comes in as she opens up with being a young endocrinologist entering the Mayo Clinic for her residency and realizing that all of the recommendations to handle diabetes, and she's talking specifically type 2, but type 1 is closely correlates. All of the recommendations actually keep people sick and make them sicker and more dependent on medication. I'm watching this play out with several type 1 diabetics that I know as well. There is credible research that links type 1 diabetes to permanent damage caused by vaccinations. Again, that's something we can look at more in depth later. Dr. Schwartzbein doesn't necessarily talk about that specifically, but she does talk about the dietary recommendations. Now, I know one young person and have someone close to us who both of whom are type 1 diabetic. One was fairly recently diagnosed. And when I hear them talk about the recommendations for controlling blood sugar, I am absolutely appalled. But I'm appalled because I've read the Schwartzbein Principle and heard people speak and read more books. I understand the problem not as thoroughly as a medical doctor, as Dr. Schwartzbein does perhaps, but I'm trying to learn more all the time. The way to control blood sugar is not necessarily by injecting more insulin or having a constant stream of carbohydrates to normalize and regulate. I know a lot of people who are both type 1 and type 2 diabetics. Type 1 who have gotten almost entirely off of insulin, and type 2 who have never needed to depend on that or gotten off of it just with dietary changes, including a low carb diet, moderate protein, high fat diet, or even high protein, moderate fat. But low carb, high fat, and protein, because the protein and the fat work within the digestive system and the bloodstream to slow the absorption of carbohydrates.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
You do have to be careful when you are diabetic with too much protein, because your body through gluconeogenesis will turn protein into glucose. So
yes.
So you do need protein, but you do not want to be overdoing it. And healthy fats is definitely key.
Yes, so that means not the industrialized seed oils, but the butter, the ghee, the lard, the tallow, the coconut oil, the palm oil.
Olive oil, avocados, eating avocados, eggs.
Eating avocados, not avocado oil, but eating the avocado. Rather,
Also, I wanted to share a book that we used in my program that's a super easy read. It's called Glucose Revolution. It's the Glucose Goddess, if you've ever heard of her. This is a really easy read, or listen to it on Audible or on Spotify. But if you just need something that like brings it down into layman's terms that's easy to understand, this is really great. And she talks a lot about, she gives you all these tips or kind of like hacks for helping your blood sugar. And some of them are just really simple, like dressing up your carbs. If you are going to eat carbohydrates, number one, save it for last.
mhm.
And make sure it's, like we just said, preceded by good fat and protein.
Yeah.
If you need a snack, try to do a snack that's more on the fat or protein side. Do a handful of like walnuts, that kind of thing. Be really careful about your snacks that are carbohydrates, or just completely avoid them. Eat pieces of cheese, walnuts, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like dressing, so she calls it dressing up your carbs. And she even tells a story about one of her friends who, like, the one thing that he just didn't want to give up, it was like a bachelor guy. He just loved after work, or on the weekends, like going out for a drink with his friends. And that was just like one thing that he just couldn't give up. He just wanted to be able to still go and have that drink with his friends.
Yeah.
So what they came up with was that before he would go, before he would go out, he would steam broccoli and then smother it with butter. And he would basically eat like a head of broccoli before he would go out for his drinks with his friends. So just like an example of like something hack that you can do. It takes a little bit of planning, but if there's just things that you're not ready to give up, or not ready to change, which a lot of this work, regardless of what it is, whether it's, type 1, type 2, gut healing, all that stuff, it does require some big changes, and it takes time. So unfortunately, that's like the frustrating thing, is that it takes time and it takes intention. But there's definitely things that you can do to make it.
It is doable. It is always doable. And when you're talking about kids and diabetes, we want to not set them up for a lifetime of dependence upon the pharmaceutical company. We want to set them up, instead of for failure, for thriving.
Mhm.
And if you follow the standard protocol, you're probably not going to have that. So we need to look at it differently. That book sounds like a good one. I've not read that. I hadn't even seen that yet. But the Schwarzbein principle I find very understandable, very thorough, and there's a lot of anecdotal evidence in there that she shares of patients that she's had. Very, very good read. And Lily Nichols' books as well.
Yeah, and just to give you a visual, I'm sorry, this is a little bit messy. I can email this to you guys if anybody wants it. But just to give you a visual, when you're thinking, for anybody, but especially if you are pre-diabetic or type 1 or type 2, your blood sugar is going to go up and down. It's supposed to do that. That's
Yes.
the rhythm. That's the rhythm of life. A lot of your cortisol is supposed to do that. Your melatonin is supposed, so your hormones and all of these things are supposed to go in a rhythm. But when it comes to your blood sugar, you don't want that to go too high, and you don't want it to go too low. And so the goal in like making sure that you eat good fat, good protein, save your carbs for last, dress up your carbs, those kind of things. The goal is that curve, if you are tracking your blood sugar, the goal is that spike doesn't go over 30 points or under 30 points from your baseline before you've eaten. So
Okay.
I'll put a link on the I'll put it on our website and put a link in the description.
Okay. And pay attention, because as I mentioned, we will be interviewing Dr. Schwarzbein soon.
Or you can also email us at God's Good Table.
.com. Yep. Now I see I'm getting a chuckle out of one question, and Erin, you'll understand as soon as I mention it. And that is from Corey. Can you please speak about a natural birth control for perimenopausal women? And I'm laughing, Corey, because just the Cliff Notes version is I had Erin, and then nearly 3 years later, I had Taylor. And then we did the snip, snip, changed our minds, went back to the plumber, had everything reconnected, and then it was like boom, 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 boom. 7 kids in 11 years, I think. And the oldest of that set is sitting across from me at the table with her 4th baby. She has done a much better job of spacing children than I did. And I just was like my mother, a fertile myrtle. We can talk about infertility as we're going to very, very soon. I don't know what causes the opposite, but that was me. And when I became really heavily involved with the Weston A. Price Foundation, one of the things that Dr. Price recommended and that the foundation recommends is spacing your children. When I was first involved with the foundation for the first several years, I thought, you know, God knows what I can handle, and God will give me what he wants. That was kind of a theme with a group of people that I was communicating with online. And I had adopted that theme, and I didn't really care that much. But I quickly, after several children in a row, realized, man, there's really wisdom in that. And the wisdom comes from different directions, including my body needed time to recover and restore. The children needed a healthy mother for healthy bodies themselves. And man, oh man, the emotional toll and physical toll when you are having one baby after another, it's real and it's not good. And so I took a natural family planning class from the Couple to Couple League, which is Catholic. I'm not Catholic, but I did that class and it was helpful. But until I read Garden of Fertility by Katie Singer and heard her speak, and she has actually used me as an example. There you go. You've got them all.
You can ever.
If I don't have it, you've got it. I read that book, and it really helped me to more fully and completely understand how to read my body's signs. So at that point, I finally got about 2 3/4 years before the last 2 children. The last child was a surprise. And so this is what I'm going to state. Pay attention to all of the signs. Read the book. Don't ignore a single one. Because one day, Katie Singer, the author, actually called me about something else. And she asked me how I was doing. And I said, well, I'm pregnant again. And we had a conversation about that. And I said, I thought I was fine. And I missed one thing. I need to be careful about, okay, I think I'm okay to say, you're measuring your body temperature and you're tracking that. You're keeping the calendar. Perimenopausal is more difficult because your cycle is going to go like this month to month when you're perimenopausal. And so you can't rely as much on the calendar when you are perimenopausal, but you can rely on the other 2 factors, the body temperature and the mucus. However, neither of those alone is enough. And so the thing that I personally had missed was, I'll just say I was dry that month, pretty dry. And so I thought, oh, no problem. You don't necessarily have to have that mucus change and increase in mucus to be fertile when you're perimenopausal. And Katie pointed out one obvious thing to me that I won't state here, but if you think about it, moisture isn't just about showing fertility signs, it's also about facilitating conception. So keep that calendar, track it because it still is useful. And you probably will be able to catch a spike where you may be ovulating. Body temperature is going to show that spike. And still pay attention to the mucus, but don't rely only on the mucus or only on any one factor. So I would suggest you read The Garden of Fertility. Erin will put the link up in the show notes, and we do have that listed on our website on the resource page, I believe. And just pay attention. And I will say that because I ate a very clean, very nutritious diet, menopause, when it came, when I was 50 years old, was a breeze. And I would wish that for you as well. But be very careful about watching all of those signs and not disqualifying any one of them. Just because something may or may not show up doesn't mean that you're not fertile. So it's actually a good time to be extra careful too. So I hope that that answers your question on that, Corey. We have been on just about an hour, and I think we have time for maybe one more question. I'm looking through here, and Erin, you can look through what we have in email.
I think there was one more question in email about being on the GAPS diet for quite some time, and then how do you reintroduce food?
And the answer to that is one thing at a time and slowly. Small amounts, build up, see how your body handles it. And when you're not seeing negative signs, then go ahead and add the next thing. But you're going to add things. The most problematic should be last. The most problematic being things that you know have been a problem, such as gluten. Dairy should be introduced in the form of cultured raw dairy, preferably cultured raw. But of course, I often talk about Trimona yogurt or vat pasteurized low temperature, but otherwise clean and nutritious milk from pastured animals. If you cannot get raw milk, and culture it yourself. That yogurt maker that I sometimes talk about and is on our resource list is my go-to tool now for making yogurt, along with the Trimona yogurt. 24-hour culture, definitely. So one thing at a time. Save the least or the most problematic for last. Add one thing at a time, beginning with what wasn't initially perhaps.
And when you add one thing at a time, you have to give it 4, 5, 6 days, because a food allergy is you're going to have a reaction to an actual allergy like within minutes or within an hour or two. But a food hypersensitivity, which is what most people are dealing with, and which can be healed with intense gut healing, that can take a couple of days to show up. So when you're introducing foods, it's not one per day. It is, you have to try one thing for several days and wait 3-4 days to see if you have any reactions to it before you proceed with the next.
Thank you for clarifying that. I was going to say a week, but even 4 or 5 days. And Erin is certified as a restorative wellness gut healing practitioner too. So she knows her stuff. It's not GAPS. It's similar in some ways and different in others. I'm more well versed in GAPS. So yeah, go low and slow, one thing at a time, pay attention. My husband is actually going to be doing the gut healing protocol and first testing with Erin, and that will be starting soon. So once we do, we'll do some updates and we'll talk about that. Maybe I can get him to come on. I don't know. But, you can pay attention. We'll kind of follow up with that and let you know how he's doing. I want to say that today has been especially delightful. because not only am I answering questions, but we are having a conversation. And Erin, now as a practitioner, is able to flesh out and fill in gaps and talk to you and to me too with more information. And I'm just really thankful for that. She is pursuing more certifications currently. And I don't know if you're going to be adding more after the functional aspect, or if you're going to take a break. She's really busy studying and
I just
working.
really love learning, so
I do too. I do too.
I just
I'm
keep
really,
dragging it on because I just like to
I
learn.
know.
So.
I do too. And I'm looking forward eventually to doing root cause protocol program, but I have to finish that book first. So that's later. But Erin is very well qualified, very knowledgeable. And Erin, it really has been delightful being able to share this with you. And for Corey or others who are on here maybe for the first time, Erin is our eldest daughter, the eldest of 9. And it's just been wonderful creating God's good table with her. We're both trying to focus on getting more content out, some of which is done, but not quite ready to put up.
On the yogurt video.
Oh, good.
I filmed a little video
Right.
on yogurt, so I was trying to put that.
I wanted to ask about that, and I had filmed also a fermented beverages class, which she'll be making available as soon as possible as well. She's working on that. We've got other things coming up, so just keep watching. I think I'm about to go through a major change that I'm not gonna say specifically what right now, but I am looking forward to being able to get more writing done and create more content. So there's more coming up. In the meantime, though, everyone, we really appreciate your time and attention today, and we will appreciate it very much if you share our videos and our website and we're so bad at Instagram, aren't we?
We're just bad at in general.
Yeah. I don't know how people get all of this done, and it's something that neither of us enjoy. But
the one thing that we're good at is YouTube. So
yes, that's why we're here. YouTube is easy.
We focus on one thing, or that's all we can handle at the moment, and we try to be as good at that as we can. So not that we're good at it, but we're better at it.
Yeah, especially when you're on too, so I don't make all the technical problems pop up as routinely happens. So we would ask for you please to like this video, please subscribe, and please share. It really does help us to carry on the work when you do so and spread the word. We want our content out to help more people. We're not in this to get rich. We're in this to help people. And in order to help more people, it requires all of you who listen to share, like, and subscribe. So we appreciate that. And we also do have a little tab for buy us a glass of milk or something like that. And that helps us as well. So we are going to, we're going to sign off for today. And Carmen, you're not missing much if you don't have Instagram, because obviously we're not on there as much as we probably should be anyway. But we are here, as Erin said. So tune in next week. Oh, next week, by the way, instead of Wednesday, we are going to do Tuesday, because Wednesday I'll be driving home with my husband. So next Tuesday at 3 p.m., I will be on with daughter-in-law Sarah in South Carolina, where we will talk about making the major changes from a standard American diet to a healthy, God-given foods kind of diet, practical tips, and we'll talk about how the significant changes that happen both to your own body and those of your children when you make these changes, including overcoming problems associated with years of standard American diet and the repercussions that sometimes even follow through with the next generation. So there will be a lot to talk about, but Tuesday of next week rather than Wednesday, Tuesday at 3 p.m. So we're going to sign off for now, but we thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week. We hope it's a good one. So, all right. Bye-bye, everyone.